Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge. As you all know, the Afghan Taliban, they are celebrating their 3rd anniversary in power, and their ascent to power followed the collapse of a US-led dispensation. Though the present regime, the Talibans, they are not officially recognized by the international community, yet they are interacting with the community, with the UN bodies. They just participated in Doha talks. Now, question is, how far have they taken Afghanistan, particularly in the context of improving standard of living, improving the life of the people? These are some of the questions which we need to look into. Our special guest today is Pakistan's special representative on Afghanistan, Ambassador Asif Durrani. Asif, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Imran.
Joining me in the discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is Ambassador Amjad Sher.
Thank you.
Asif, I'll open the discussion with a very elementary question. 3 years into their rule, the Taliban 2.0, do you think they have achieved some diplomatic successes during this period?
I think they are gradually moving to that direction. And we should not forget that they are faced with tremendous challenges. Number one, they are not recognized by any country. Secondly, when they came to power, their coffers were empty. Not a single dollar was there. Thirdly, it was a surprise for them because they were not expecting meltdown of Ashraf Ghani government. So it was also a big surprise for them. And more importantly, this capture of Kabul was bloodless. It was a bloodless change in Afghanistan. So on the balance, when you look at it during the past 3 years, I think security situation in Afghanistan has improved. There's security, there's less corruption, which is internationally acknowledged, and then Afghan Taliban have also implemented certain rules and regulations which in fact may suit to the Afghan conditions, but not certainly do not fit into the Islamic tenets which they claim that they have implemented. So there are pluses and there are minuses, there are challenges. And briefly for Pakistan, the peace in Afghanistan is welcome. We have been telling this to the Taliban regime also. But at the same time, our complaint is that their peace has become a problem for us because of the TTP. TTP attacks have increased.
We will discuss that.
Yes, the TTP attacks have increased almost 70% in Pakistan. So on the balance, when we say, so they are welcome, their coming into power is welcome, but at the same time, they have to take certain measures for the stability of the region.
Okay, thank you. My question is about the Taliban current government. Have you seen any transformation? The first Afghan Taliban government was in 1996. That was a very harsh, version of the Taliban regime. And now the second is Taliban regime. Have you seen any transformation? And should we see now Taliban as a system, or are they still going through a kind of a movement?
Well, I think when you are in a position, you have less responsibility. If you are talking about Taliban 1.0, it was a new experience for them and they got up, but they were not in full control of the country. Still 15 to 20% of the country was in opposition's hands. But after 9/11, the dispensation which governed Afghanistan for 2 decades also could not deliver. And while we may say that it was a republic or it was a democratic rule, but we all know that what kind of a democracy that was. President Karzai and President Ashraf Ghani, they were not grassroots politicians, or they were not leaders in per se, even from Afghan standards. So the result was obvious. When the Americans left, everything collapsed. Now you are talking about Afghanistan's second stint into power. That is a reality, one. Secondly, I think there is a difference when you compare it with Taliban 1.0 and Taliban 2.0. Here, I think they are quite media savvy. They are not that harsh like they were during their 1.0 regime. Yes, there are problems, especially with regard to inclusivity, with regard to women's rights, including their right to education and their right to work. Those are big problems, and that is actually would pose a big challenge to the Taliban governance, and that would also be a big challenge for their recognition.
Asif, you said that the security situation, and which international media is also saying that the security situation has improved considerably under the Taliban. But the humanitarian situation is very dire. 23.7 million people need humanitarian assistance. 6.3 million people are internally displaced. Then humanitarian funding appeal for 2024, this is concerning. For 2024 has only received 25% of the requested fund. Then 52% of the mobile health teams have shut down. My question is Afghanistan situation heading towards a forgotten crisis? Is the world forgetting about the crisis there?
I think the answer lies in your question. It is rightly so that Afghanistan has almost been forgotten. There is no doubt about it, and this was in fact highlighted during Doha 3 session in June, that Afghanistan almost, when its humanitarian assistance is not up to the mark. Even last year, only 1/3 of the commitments were fulfilled, and you have quoted statistics for 2024.
Yeah.
And if only 25% commitment is coming, so what will happen? 97% poverty in the country, of which 52% of the population is actually dependent on humanitarian assistance, international humanitarian assistance. And if the economic conditions continue to deteriorate, I think our concern should be that people in Afghanistan would start leaving the country, and their most favorite destination would be Pakistan. And this is something which we have to be sensitive about, and then international community should also know their responsibility.
What would be the implications for the international community if it ends up a forgotten crisis, if the international community fails to live up to the expectations?
I think it can push Afghanistan back to pre-9/11 conditions, and which in fact then gave birth to 9/11.
Ambassador Asif Durrani, in the backdrop of the recurrent TTP attacks on Pakistan, our defense minister had once said that we won't hesitate on launching attack on Afghanistan. So my question is, how keen are we giving a chance to diplomacy?
Well, diplomacy is used. I'm not going to discuss what the defense minister had said, but diplomacy is still working, and you have to give it a chance.
Just a deviation from what Amjad said. Now, we discussed about the humanitarian assistance requirement, the necessity of humanitarian assistance for the Afghans there. Now, a comprehensive, sustained and contextualized response for international community is required. You would agree with that?
Correct.
Now, only assistance, humanitarian assistance which is being given is not enough. Now, it is important, it is imperative that the root cause of their problems are also addressed. How is the international community dealing with that? Is it in their minds, or they just simply want to give money and that's all?
It is,
They are isolated also.
When you talk about international community, we know who they are. And then their priorities are different. And after Ukraine war and Palestinian genocide, priorities have in fact changed altogether. And Afghanistan is no more in the news. Forget about front or back pages, not even in the inner pages. They are just, they are absent. Afghanistan is absent. In such a scenario, in fact, and my worry is that ISKP, Islamic State Khorasan province, is gaining ground inside Afghanistan. And that should be a source of concern for everyone in the region and beyond. Because their action in Iran, their action in Moscow, and also many operations inside Pakistan, if that can happen here, it can also happen elsewhere in the world. So I think it should be a source of concern for everyone.
The Afghan rulers are celebrating 3rd anniversary of their coming to power. And legitimacy remains a major issue for them. They have no recognition from any country of the world. International financial restrictions are in place. How do you see the future of Afghanistan, as 96% of the population live under the poverty line and they have severe economic problems?
Amjad, I think this question should be asked to the Afghan interim authorities, not to me, as far as legitimacy is concerned. That is, Afghanistan is a sovereign country, that decision they have to take. And subsequently, I mean, as far as economic conditions are concerned, definitely there is a linkage between recognition and economic well-being of Afghanistan. So I am sure they will be mindful of this fact also.
Asif, you would agree the international community has been insisting on it that Taliban have created a very serious human rights crisis. And UN Special Rapporteur on Afghanistan, Richard Bennett, he has described the situation as institutionalized system of discrimination, segregation, disrespect for human dignity, and exclusion of women and girls. How are the Taliban taking this thing? Are they showing any flexibility? And I was reading an article which actually said that the women have been erased from public life. Now, do the Afghan Taliban understand the gravity of what they are doing?
I think there is a little bit of exaggeration in this narrative. The West looks at it from their own angle. And for instance, during the Republic time, during the past 20 years, when Americans were there, everything was honky-dory. And schools were open, girls were going to schools. Still 2/3 of the girls were out of schools. Not because there was any restriction, but because of the culture, the conservativeness of the Afghan society. People don't want to send their daughters. So you and me cannot force them.
What you are saying is you are endorsing what the Taliban are doing as regards excluding women from public life.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, neither I'm endorsing that. I'm telling you the situation on the ground. I gave you a comparison that during the past 20 years, when Americans were there, schools were open, there was no restriction. Even then, 2/3 of the girls were out of school.
So is this a justification for preventing the from adopting
I'm
this
not
policy?
saying, I'm just telling you, who am I to sit
No,
on
no, no.
judgment?
What is you say?
Who am I to sit
do
on
you have
judgment?
do you have a view on this thing?
I have, the question is not my view,
No, it is. It is the view of the
I
international
want to
community.
hold
You
it.
are a special representative. So, do
I'm
you have a view on this
representative-
thing?
Imran, I'm a representative for Pakistan.
Yes.
I have to watch
As a representative
Pakistan.
from Pakistan, do you have a view on this
Can
thing?
I speak?
Please.
Can I? I have to watch the interests of Pakistan. And we are the neighbors. We face Afghanistan on a daily basis. There is a unique relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan, which is symbiotic. There are tribes which are divided on both sides of the borders. They, at times, they love each other, and at times they fight with each other.
Ambassador, these are standard sentences. These are standard
No,
comments.
the question is, you give me the answer, then I'll.
I need to know.
The question.
Okay, does Pakistan substantiate or endorse this
the
policy of the Afghans?
The question is, Pakistan is part of the international consensus.
Yes, and the international community says this is wrong policy.
Let me finish. International consensus is the OIC, which has condemned this decision of banning girls' education and their right to work. So I think we should give more importance to OIC's resolutions. Of course, we are part of the international consensus, but the question is engagement. Should we engage the interim government in Afghanistan, or we should also boycott the way international community, quote unquote, is doing? The solution is for the neighbors, immediate neighbors, situation is different than the international community sitting in their comfort zones.
Master, I'm not talking about how we should react. I was just asking your views on it.
Listen, it is not yes or no situation. That you will ask me that yes or no.
Okay.
No.
I'm just
My question is definitely about the TTP. Obviously, this TTP has also, spoiled the relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan. If you ask the Taliban side, they say, please identify the TTP and we will take action against them. But they tell this to Pakistani side. Now, my point is that the TTP groups, they freely roam on the Afghanistan-Pakistani side. And as you have mentioned it, that now Islamic State of Khorasan, they are also regrouping Afghanistan. So how do we see if there is no action or no steps taken by the Taliban government? Are we going to still have this kind of relationship with Afghanistan?
We are watching how they, in fact, take action against the TTP. We have to see, and then there have been certain assurances from the interim government that there will be change. So we are still waiting for that change to happen.
Asif, now close association, shared ideology. It is very difficult to envision a scenario where Afghan Taliban would crack down on the TTP. Now, in this case, how do we plan to deal with the Taliban regime?
Well, if that would create difficulty in the relationship, if they don't take action against the TTP, there are two ways. One is to make them surrender and confine their activities, and their leadership should also their activities should be confined, or they should hand over the TTP to Pakistan. So the choices for the interim.
But you are saying it's very difficult. As I said, it's very difficult to envision that. I've read your comments elsewhere also in the media. You have in fact called them cousins. Ideological cousins. Now, if they're ideological cousins, and what you are demanding of them, is it really possible, rational, that what you are demanding, they would give it to you?
In politics, it is possible.
If it was possible, Asif, we have seen Afghanistan. We have seen why the Americans came to Afghanistan, right? It was not possible. They are stubborn people. They refuse to yield on what they believe in.
No,
So
but
how can you say it is possible in politics?
No,
This is just a vague statement.
No, in politics it's possible because
Why was it
Taliban-
not possible when they were talking about Osama bin Laden?
The overwhelming view internationally was that after 9/11, Taliban were done. And there was hardly any analyst or pundits who would ever say that Taliban will come back. In politics, it's possible.
Okay.
My question is about the third Doha agreement. You know, our meeting held in Doha recently, in which the first time Taliban government also participated, and by incorporating or agreeing to their point of view, and one of their view was that they should be engaged or incorporated or included in the international financial system, so that instead of this Hawala system, they should do this trading or business through the SWIFT system or through banking, although their central banking is no more working. Anyway, do you think by agreeing to the Taliban and inviting them, it is a step towards recognition the Taliban government and engaging them?
I think this was an exercise to bring Taliban on the negotiating table. And Taliban agreed to two agenda items. One was on private sector development, and second was counter-narcotics measures. On counter-narcotics measures, Taliban received a lot of praises for taking action in banning poppy, almost 90%, 95% cut on poppy cultivation. That was acknowledged by UNODC officials who made presentation at the Doha conference. On private sector development, there were many views, and it also talked about Afghan interim government's capacity, their bank's capacity, but there were in fact different opinions about this aspect also. However, it was highlighted that Afghanistan needs financial assistance. Afghanistan needs to have a trade relationship, and trade cannot be possible unless there are banking system, there's international correspondence, including SWIFT system. Right now, the Afghan banks are not under sanctions, but because of the fear, international banks, they are not doing business with Afghan banks. So this was also highlighted. And then Afghanistan's $9.6 billion, which have been frozen. So there was a demand from many countries, including Pakistan, that those should be unfrozen. So this is again, a dialogue is going on. It is a positive step. Although Taliban representation was at their spokesperson's level, who is the equivalent to a deputy minister, excuse me, and foreign minister did not attend because this time the UN side was not led by the Secretary General but Under Secretary General De Carlo. So Taliban also reciprocated. So here I think we should also be watchful that Taliban are in power. They are controlling the lives of 40 million people, and they are a reality. So you have to negotiate with them for the sake of the people of Afghanistan.
My last question is, no doubt Taliban are facing challenges, economic challenges, infrastructure challenges, diplomatic, political challenges. What is the future scenario for Afghanistan and for the Taliban government? Although they don't call themselves Taliban, they call themselves Afghan government.
Fine, that's the title which we are using actually, is that people are familiar with these terminologies. But it's the Afghan interim government, which we call from Pakistan's point of view. And also other countries also call it Afghan interim government. They themselves call it Afghan interim government. So this is the title they have chosen for themselves. We also call them. But the issue is they are in power. Nothing moves without their consent inside Afghanistan. And this is a big challenge, not only for Afghan interim government, but also for the international community. because they may raise demands on human rights and other issues. But if the Taliban don't budge, what can they do? Do they want to attack Afghanistan again? For human rights, I don't think they will attack. So we have to be realistic. Therefore, I think the sanity demands and prudence demands that we should engage the Afghan interim government for different issues, including economic issues, human rights, and other social issues.
Asif, during this insurgency, we had leverage on Taliban. They needed us they needed our support. We were providing them sanctuaries. But now the situation is different. The Taliban, to gain legitimacy, internal legitimacy, they need the support of their own people. They need the following of their own people. Now, and their people, they are anti-Pakistan. There is a dislike for Pakistan, which is visible on many occasions. Now, in this situation, what are our options?
I don't think that I agree with your question. If they dislike Pakistan, then why they want to come here? If they dislike Pakistan.
You answered this part, your question you answered when you said that it is a favorite destination, comfortable destination.
So if they dislike...
But their dislike was quite visible. You see, there are events when it is visible. For instance, in cricket matches, have you seen the reaction of Afghans towards Pakistanis?
You have seen the rivalry in Ashes.
That is something. Ambassador, that is something else.
In football, have you seen in Europe?
That is Ambassador.
No,
this is actual dislike, actual hatred, which is in
Have you seen the French and the British?
Yes, I've seen.
So, the kind of dislike they have.
You are justifying it because of that?
No, I'm least worried about that aspect. I'm more worried about taking care of the TTP. I'm not worried about that, because had they been disliking Pakistan, they would not come here. Why are they coming? They want to make a beeline to come here. If today, we open our borders, almost whole of Afghanistan would come here. They would love to come here. What are we talking about? There's a symbiotic relationship between the two countries. Don't forget that. But yes, there are borders. The Afghans have to behave like a sovereign state. And we have to, in fact, try to encourage them to behave like a sovereign state.
Okay. Your words taken. Ladies and gentlemen, you watched our program. We had the Special Representative from Afghanistan, Ambassador Asif Durrani, with us. Asif, thank you very much for your comments. Thank you very much for engaging with us. And this third anniversary, which the Taliban are celebrating, it is also a reminder to the Taliban that Afghanistan crisis is not over. It is a reminder to the world that the problem is there, the humanitarian crises are there, and human rights crises are there. Thanks for watching, and we will be back again.